أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last night we started by looking at a few different ideas. First, reminding ourselves that in these nights we remember the concepts of ziyarah. So we went a little bit deeper in there and said that ziyarah is not simply about a physical visitation or even just saying that it's a spiritual visitation. We went a bit deeper and said that the essence of ziyarah is that a person's focus, their care, their love and attention is on one thing and everything else gets turned to the side, right? Everything else becomes non-existent. And that can be done in a good way and it can be done in a bad way. We gave some examples there. We then moved on and we talked about how even though we've been coming for majalis for all these years, there still seems to be some spiritual, akhlaqi issues that you and I have been dealing with, right? Even though we get these reminders constantly, we're benefiting from different ulama who have been coming, Ramadan, Muharram, all throughout the year, but still it seems that our beliefs, what we say, there seems to be a gap between that and the way that we act and the way that we behave. We said, okay, let's try to figure out if we can bridge that gap somehow. And we saw that in the words of the Ahlul Bayt, Islam and Iman are two different things. Islam is just saying stuff, but Iman is when you actually act upon those beliefs, right? It's amal along with saying those things too. I said, okay, we know the Imam, right? Our Imam is called, he said, Hal min nasirin yansurana. We say, Labbaik ya Hussein, we're answering his call. But we say, look, if we're going to answer him, it should be backed up by something. It can't just be in words, there needs to be something, alongside. We know that his mission was about Islah. We said Islah is not about reformation, but restoration. Taking things back to the way that it was brought down by Allah through Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So the simple sort of milak, barometer and criterion for us is that, okay, have we brought ourselves back to those original teachings of Islam or not? The way that Rasulullah had intended. Or for that matter, the way that the Ahlul Bayt in all of those years where they were there, whether they were active imams or imams who had to kind of do things very secretly, are we following their teachings or not? Right? So we said, okay, let's go a bit deeper. We talked about this concept that seems to go and extends and connects every single human, not just Shias, not just Muslims, not just religious people, but human beings in general have this identity crisis. Right? I think us more than others, but most people have this at some point in their life. And the same thing occurred to those Muslims on the battlefield in front of Imam Hussein as well. He said, okay, our identity should be something which is connected to Allah, right? Allah gives us a command, we follow it. That's what it seems like it should be, right? Okay, but we see that Allah has given us clear commands and we don't follow everything. He said, okay, so I'm claiming one thing, but I'm acting a different way. Okay, we see then there's a gap here. Okay, now what do? We said, all right, it seems as though there's been a problem, some identity loss, there's been some hiccup and malfunction somewhere along the way. We took some help from one ayah of the Quran, which is Surah Al-Hashr, Surah 59, ayah 19, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسُهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah. When they forgot about Allah, Allah says, I made them forget who they are, their own nafs, their identity, who they really are. They end up becoming fasiq. Right? They just openly go against Allah. So now we reverse engineer. We say, look, when we see ourselves openly rebelling and transgressing, Even though we may not be out there like atheists, but in some sense, even though we're claiming Muslim, in practical terms, sometimes we act like atheists do, right? In terms of our actions and our behavior. Maybe our morality and our actions are no different than them. So, okay, we can sometimes act in that sense of fisq, and being fasiqeen. Why? Well, we forgot who we really are. How did that happen? Well, we forgot about Allah. I said, okay, well, yeah, the Quran's saying that, but we're saying, like, Hasan, I still don't get it. Like, I'm remembering Allah every day, right? Praying. Even if I delay it a little bit, I'm still remembering Allah. You know, I start, before I eat food, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Every once in a while, something good happens. I say Alhamdulillah. So I'm thinking about Allah. Like, how can you say that? How can Allah, or you, or me, in this sense, make the claim that we're forgetting about Allah here, right? There's something else that we're trying to figure out. So the formula seems to be clear, but trying to apply it into how we ended up like this seems to be a little ambiguous right now. So that's what we want to try to explore for tonight, inshallah, is how exactly did this identity loss occur in the first place? Right? And the way that I wanted to approach it, if you remember from last night, is although we could have gone through, let's say, stories of previous prophets, we could have looked at people at the time of the Ahlul Bayt, we could have looked at recent times, things like that, ayat of the Quran, riwayat, things like that. I wanted to, again, examine this through pop culture for a few different reasons. One of them being that to show that this same element is in the hearts and minds of every single human out there. And that when they're writing their characters, when they're writing scripts, when they're putting out these movies and TV shows and writing comics and all of this, even when they're writing music, these same themes and elements are there too. Everybody has an ideology. Everybody has a philosophy. They may not be consciously aware of it, but it's coming out in the way that they express themselves. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to attempt and show you that this identity crisis and loss and all this problem, this exists with even in a character like Superman as well. So if you did your homework, then this will help you out. If you didn't, then you're going to be lost, so you can go on your phone for the next 20 minutes if you want to, right? It's okay with me. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, let's play a little Superman trivia right now. Let's see how good you guys are. Okay. And forgive me, sisters, I can't get your answers, but I'm assuming you're giving the right answers too, okay? So, Superman, what is his true identity? Clark Kent? Anybody agree, disagree? Kal-El. Oh, there we go. Now we got a true fan. There we go, right? So one answer to give is Clark Kent. Another answer to give is Kal-El. Now again, for those who have no idea what's going on, I'll try to explain a little bit, but I don't want to go full-on DC Superman tafsir because that's for a separate session. But there's a character in DC Comics called Superman, right? Cape and everything, I'm sure. S on the chest, although it's not an S, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So his planet, which was what? What was the planet he came from? Krypton. There we go. Come on, man. You can say it out loud. Okay, it's all right. Yeah. So his planet was dying, and his parents realized that everybody on this planet's going to get wiped out, and they had this young little baby Kal-El. They put him on a spaceship, and they sent him off to Earth, right? And the planet basically got wiped out, and he was the last surviving Kryptonian, right? And ended up on Earth, and then the rest is now history, so to speak, comics, TV shows, movies, and all these kind of things, right? So now let's move forward here, right? Okay, so people who would answer Clark Kent would be ascribing his identity to somebody from Earth, right? Being raised by Earth parents in Smallville, Kansas, right? So again, now going forward with the story, for those who don't know, when his spaceship crash lands on Earth, these two Earth parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, find this baby. They say, what's going on here? And they take him and they raise him as his own. Like, okay, we're going to raise him. They gave him the name Clark, right? So that's how he becomes Clark Kent, right? So, but his actual birth name as a Kryptonian is Kal-El. Again, I know it's a lot of details. I mean, look, what's the difference between me talking about all this and saying Banu Qurayza did so-and-so back then, right? They're all just names and tribes, and there's all these details that we get lost in sometimes. But hopefully you'll see where I'm going with this, inshallah. Okay. Now, next question. Was Superman when he was a baby? No. Okay. When did he end up becoming Superman? Now, there's going to be a little ikhtilaf nazar here. I know that. But it's going to be like, so give me some answer. When did he become Superman? Give me an age range. Give me a point in life, something like that. Teenager. Hasan. Okay. So now I know who the true fans are. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So there's different iterations of the comics, and they show it different in some TV shows and movies. Generally speaking, they say, look, Superman first found out about his powers usually around like middle school, something like that. And then when he was a bit older, like let's say high school area, at that time, that's when he really figured out things and kind of took on the mantle of Superman. Some say it was beyond that, but I don't want to go too much into the different, types of, and the differences there. But anyway, so when he first finds out about his abilities and powers, right, does he immediately just put on a cape and say, all right, I'm going to go fight some crime? No, he doesn't do that. The first thing that happens when he realizes that he's faster than everybody, he's stronger than everybody, X-ray vision, can shoot lasers out of his eyes, right? This ice or cool breath, all this stuff. He doesn't immediately just put on this uniform and go out and fight crime. What does he do? He freaks out. And the first thing he does when he tells his parents is that, I don't want any part of this. What's going on with me? I don't want to deal with this. So he wants to get rid of this. He thinks it's something wrong with him, something strange, something abnormal. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this, right? Okay. Now, after some point, again, I don't want to go too much into the history, that's when some stuff happens. He figures out what his real kind of purpose is, becomes Superman, and that's where puts on the cape and does everything else. Okay, I'm not going to go into any more tafsir there, but now you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how does this connect to identity? Well, let me explain, if you can recite, as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay. So we said that Superman, one answer somebody gives about his true origin and identity is Earth, meaning Earth parents, Smallville, meaning Jonathan and Martha Kent. He's been named Clark Kent, that's his identity. Somebody else says, no, I know where he's really from. He's from this other planet. He's an alien, right? It's Kal-El, that's his name. He's a Kryptonian, right? So, okay, now let's go back to the question we asked last night. You and I, where are we really from? And when somebody comes up and asks, I've been asked multiple times since I got here, and it happens, when you introduce yourself, when you meet somebody new, where are you from? What's the answer? For me, do I say I'm from New Jersey because that's where I was born and raised? Do I say I'm from Orlando because that's where I have been for the past 3.5 years? Right? Do I say Pakistan because that's where my parents are from? Do I say India, although my late marhum father would hate if I say that, right? He's like, no, we gave it up, we went to Pakistan, we're Pakistani. Okay, Dad, sorry, right? I have no stance on this, by the way. I'm just saying, he got upset when I said that. So, is that what I say? Because I'm a Sayyid, do I say, no, I'm from Medina? Is that what I'm supposed to say? Like, what do I answer? Do I say, no, I'm going back to Nabi Adam, I'm from Africa? Like, what am I supposed to answer over here? Pangea? I don't know what the answer is. Us as Muslims, how should we answer? What is the actual answer here? Where are we from? From Allah. It's a very nice Sunday school answer. Very good. What does that mean, we're from Allah? What does that mean? We're from Allah? We descended from Allah. We're coming from Allah. Yeah, that's our real origin. Now look, we can say that, and we can even think that sometimes, we can give that answer, but what does that mean in terms of our actions? Ahsantum, right? And Allah knows that we're going to forget this. Constantly we're going to forget where we're really from. We're going to act as if we are descending from Pakistan or from India or from Iran or Afghanistan or from Iraq or from wherever, all these places, or from Toronto, whatever it is. We're going to act like that's our real origin. We're going to take on those values and forget where we're really from. Now, how does this tie into, let's go back to the Superman Clark over here. When he first finds out about his powers, what happens? He freaks out. Why? Because he doesn't know where he's really from and why he has these abilities in the first place. His first issue is that he doesn't understand where he really is from. Even when he figures out where he's really from, he doesn't accept that. He's like, okay, maybe I'm an alien, fine. I have nothing to do with that. I'm here. I've been raised by earthlings. That's who I am. That's my goal. That's my vision. That's my purpose. I'm going to do what everybody else does. Right? What's happened to us? We have been here for so long. We've been raised in these physical bodies. We have associated more with these bodies than our actual ruh and our real soul and who we really are. And Allah knows that this is going to happen to us constantly, over and over again. We are going to be people who are associated and enthralled and enamored and attracted and enslaved to the dunya. We're going to think that this vehicle, this body, is where we belong and that's where we're from. We are not Clark. He is not Clark. He's from somewhere else. We're not these bodies. We're something beyond that. And Allah knows that, and that's why, as the brother rightfully said, Allah says, look, I know you're going to forget this. I need to give you reminders, and I'm going to give you these reminders every single time somebody passes away. Every single time somebody does this intiqal and they transfer themselves back to where they came from, I want you to remember this. And that's why when somebody passes away, we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's a reminder for that person, but more importantly for us. We carry that janazah, we do all these things. Why? It's a reminder that, hey, this person, they made their return. I'm going to make my return too. Where am I returning? Inna lillah. That's where I belong. That's where I came from. Allah's saying, you're mine. You're descending from my breath. You're my manifestation. You're from my lights. You're a reflection of my asma, my names, my best names. You're greater than the jinn and the angels and everything else that's out here. That's your real purpose. Right? Again, I'm not trying to be blasphemous here, but Kal-El's father, Jor-El, had this big purpose for his son, sending him down here, and his son rejects it, right? Because of what happened. Because he doesn't understand what his real mission was. We have done the same thing being here too long. We have forgotten who we really were, and Allah's saying, no, I'm going to try giving you these reminders over and over and over again. Why do you think that these majalis are so powerful? Why do you think we talk about this mission of Imam Hussein? Islah, Islah, Islah. Wake up the people's hearts. Why are people, doing these things? It's because the Imam is trying to remind them and trying to remind us, where did you come from? What is your mission in life? What are you here to do? Forget everybody else. Forget those who don't have the message of the Ahlul Bayt. You and I, we have this. Everybody else who's confused out in the world, they have an excuse. If they're going to identify as, a carpet, well, what are we going to do? We can't do anything about that because they have no idea. They have no haqq. They have no truth. They have no way. They have no wasila. There's no tawassul for them. You and I have the Kitabullah. We have the Itra of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala We have direct access to objective truth and reality. Nobody else does. But what do? We squander it, right? We just waste it away. And these majalis are so powerful. That's why it attracts so many different individuals, right? Even those who, let's say, may not show up to any other program. They might not come Thursday night. They might not come Jumu'ah. They might not come to a Walada, Jashan, Shahada program throughout the year. Other things, maybe Eid Salah, they may not care about. But you see, they'll show up on Shab Ashur. They'll show up on Ashura. And some people, unfortunately, they take it in a very negative light, like, one time out of the year, that's it. We should be saying the other way around. Look how amazing and powerful the message of Abu Abdullah is, that they're still coming back on this day. We have no idea what these majalis are capable of. And you and I, we both know for a fact, there are individuals who have come to these majalis, one night, just one lecture, one word, one tear that's been shed, one line of ziyarah, one noha, one month, something like that, and they just like, I got to change my life around. Something as simple as that. We misunderstand the power, right? We underestimate the power of these majalis. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, the first thing that has caused us to forget our identity is because we don't remember where we really come from, right? Okay, that's number one. Now, number two. You might say, okay, but that true identity, it should still have been intact somewhere. Like, if it was there, it must have been set in place by Allah, or from Him, then it should have been intact, right? When something comes from the manufacturer, it should be free of defaults and free of defects. Well, something happened along the way then, didn't it? Something else interfered and caused these problems and caused these malfunctions. Let's go back to Kal-El/Clark Kent. So what is one of his issues? So, one of the reasons, again, besides him not knowing his real origin, and then even after knowing his origin, finding out where he's from and why he was sent down and all this, why did he still initially reject? Because he's raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent. Are they Kryptonian? No. Are they superheroes? No. Do they have a superhero ideology? No. Do they want their son to go out and save the world? Not really. They want to raise their son like an earthling. So what do? They reduce his status. They do his improper tarbiyah and they mess him up a little bit. Because he's raised like that, now he doesn't accept who he really should be. He's accepted foreign values. He's accepted something else. He has other values he was sent with, but he accepts something else. So one of the main things that sometimes, and again, forgive me for being blunt, but again, there's a point that I want to try to draw out here. One of the main factors which takes people away, whether it's kids, whether it's us, whether it's elders, is sometimes it's improper tarbiyah and not following the tarbiyah principles that have been sent down by the Ahlul Bayt. When we don't follow those principles, then what do we expect? Very simply, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. in a famous hadith that's been attributed to him, which I'm sure you've heard many times, مَا مِن مَوْلُودٍ إِلَّا يُولَدْ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every single person that's been born, every single creation, every birth, is born on what? On the fitrah. Allah is basically, Rasulullah is saying, we're all born, as we like to say, ma'soom. We're given from the manufacturer, straight from Allah. We're from Him. He's like, I created you perfect. Your fitrah was intact. Rasulullah continues, فَأَبَوَاهُ يُوَهَدَانَهُ أَوْ يُنَصَّرَانَهُ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانَهُ. It's the parents who come and either make them Christian-like or make them Jewish. Like in this context, in the historical context, the Prophet's saying that they're sent as Muslims. The Muslim fitrah, that Islamic fitrah, is put in every baby. But when parents come and they mess that up, that's how you get Christians or Jews. And now we can take that and expand beyond that as well too. Right? So let me give a very simple example that I think will make sense to many of us. Because many of you might say, well, I'm not raising them like that. I'm trying to give my children, and my parents are giving me the correct principles. They brought me to the majalis, right? They inculcated me with the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, right? They made me memorize the names of the 14 Ma'sumin, right? Maybe I was taught to memorize birthdays and the days of Shahada and all these things. Like, no, I had that stuff. Like, okay. That's one way of being given this information. But let's look at the normalized language that's there among some parents and their children. When a child is young, what's the sort of main thing as a child is going through school? What's the sort of main concern for most parents? Make sure you get good grades. Right? Make sure you get good grades. And they'll do whatever it takes. I'll get you a tutor, right? I'll spend money on this. I'll give you extra classes. Make sure you take extracurricular activities. We want to build all this stuff up. Get good grades in school. Well, why? What's the point of that? A child might say. Because you get all this stuff, you do well in grade school, then you get into a good college. Right? It's like, okay, well, why does that matter? Well, if you get into a good college, right, a really good college, you do really well, right? Hopefully you'll get a scholarship, and then we won't have to shell out the money for it. But regardless of that, a good school, you do well there, then it'll be great for you. Okay, well, why is a good school? Why does that matter? Because you need a good school to get a good job. Okay, well, why does that matter? Because a good job will get you more money. Okay, why does that matter? Because aapko shaadi karna hai. That's why. You got to get married. And nobody wants to marry a poor person. Like, come on. Or, for those who are talking to their daughters, just in case the future son-in-law might be a big individual, right? You might have to say, look, you might have to be educated too, just in case that your husband can't take care of things. So you have to be educated, so you might have to go out. Or, as in many Western societies, sometimes you need two incomes nowadays, right? So this is the argument. Or this is what it's on. That's the main sort of concern on the lips of many, many parents. They talk about all of that stuff. Yeah, along the side, they might say, oh yeah, read a page of Quran a day. Sure, yeah, go ahead, do that. And read namaz, don't make it become qaza. Yeah, go ahead. But the main conversation happens to be about this. So much so that some parents, the way it is that they'll make sure a child finishes their homework before they read their salah. Your salah, you can wait, a couple hours, it's fine. Get your homework done first, that's more important. So now, when a child is hearing this, what do you think is coming in their mind? Are they connecting with the Ahlul Bayt? Are they connecting with the Quran? They're saying, look, my life goal is about the madda, right? The material world, the dunya. That's the main concern. Why? Because somewhere down the line, I'm going to have to get married. And apparently, the main concern for my future spouse is money, right? And security, apparently. And to do that, I need to get into a good school. And to get into a good school, I have to get good grades over here. So I better focus like that. So this is the mindset that's been inculcated for a lot of people, right? Is there a mention of taqwa? Not really. Is there a mention of real ishq and love for the Ahlul Bayt? Well, maybe a few times a year. But in daily sort of habits, maybe not so much. So there's a difference between telling our children to love the Ahlul Bayt, and there's a difference between showing them that we love the Ahlul Bayt. When we're in the household daily showing them how we connect with Allah, connect with the Quran, connect with the Ahlul Bayt, the children will see that. And they'll act and they'll follow through, right? Sort of monkey see, monkey do. As we said, observational learning. That's the way that young children do it. You can tell them as much as you want. Say, you need to read Quran, you need to do this, and recite this, and do all that, X, Y, Z. If they don't see you and I doing it, what are they going to care? Deep down, what they're going to say is, forgive me for being blunt, but they're going to say, my mom, my dad, they're munafiqeen. Right? Because they're telling me to do all this. I don't see them praying on time. I don't see them reciting Quran. I don't see any of this happening. I don't see them, let's say, constantly remembering the musibah of Imam Hussein and Bibi Zainab and the Ahlul Bayt and shedding tears. I don't see this sort of idea. I see them listening to haram music. I see all this stuff. That's what they're going to learn from. They're not going to learn from us just commanding and do this and do that. And if you don't do this, you go to hell. That's not the way a child learns. And think about it. Do we properly learn like that too? No. Most people, they want that same way that you and I want Allah. What do we want from Allah? We want Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Ghafur, Al-Ghaffar, Al-Latif, all those nice, loving names. That's what we want from Allah. But when it comes time to talk to other people, especially our own children, we switch. Shadidul Iqab, Al-Muntaqim, and we start getting very fiery and angry. Like, hold on a second. Which names of Allah are you showing to your child? One of the main reasons that you see, statistics are there now too, one of the main reasons, the top reasons why children start to move away from Islam in the first place, especially in the West, is because they say, look, we're looking at our parents, we don't see any godliness in them. We hear this idea of modesty and haya, we don't see that in the household, right? We see people free mixing and doing ghiba, right? And all this stuff, which I don't want to mention everything from the minbar, but you know what I'm talking about. They see all this stuff, they say, okay, if that's the case, then why would I follow something like that? And then what happens? Some of them might hold on to some version of Islam, but then they go off to some different kind of extreme. Because of that, let's say, spiritual trauma or abuse early on, they go to either the left-wing extreme, liberal, progressive, whatever. They just toss out all the Sharia, or they go to the right-wing extreme, that all matters. I have to be super, involved in the Sharia, and there is no moderation involved. There is no love. It's just I got to follow this stuff, otherwise I'm going to go to hell. Like this, neither of these are real Islam. Neither of these are the Islam that was brought down Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. And look, this whole sort of rant that I'm doing is not there to say, oh, you parents, you did a bad job. That's not the point here. I don't want that to be the takeaway. I was speaking with some brothers about this the other day, and look, I know this as well, right? I grew up in a traditional Desi household. My parents, may Allah bless both their souls, they did the best they could based on what they understood, based on the way that they were raised. As far as I remember, from those, let's say, different speakers and ulama and zakirin, when they were speaking in, let's say, Pakistan or India, or when they had emigrated here in the West, those same speakers who came over here, as far as I know, I don't remember anybody talking about the system of tarbiyah according to the Ahlul Bayt. Right? Usually what was it? Saqifa, Khaybar, Khandaq, right? Like that was it. Right? It was fada'il, which has its place. I'm not denying that. But if that's the only thing that's talked about, then all these other principles, which were definitely necessary in the West, that the speakers didn't recognize, they didn't understand, the ulama didn't know, the zakirin, well, we know what they were after, obviously. They have a different agenda for them too. Parents, they didn't know. Most parents who emigrated here, they had no idea what they were in for. If you had asked that generation, the one who kind of brought us over here, that, hey, when you come here, can you envision, 20, 30, whatever years in the future, that some people will be going on, on their phones, they'll be recording themselves talking about zombie pronouns. Like, what? What the heck are you talking about? What's a zombie pronoun? Well, that's what's happening. Like, oh, do you know what NPCs are? No, I don't know what NPCs are. Well, guess what? In the future, there are going to be people who are making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a day being NPCs for people, right? And if you don't know what that means, then I actually don't want you to Google that. It's really disturbing, right? I'm even like, I almost want to say the line just to get a laugh, but it's so inappropriate. I don't do that. It's really weird, the society we live in right now. What people are doing for money, what they're doing for fame and fortune. There's no way anybody knew what was going to happen. Well, there were some, right? But they weren't the ones who were, let's say, involved in, let's say, guiding our sort of communities here, right? So that was one level of issue. So the first thing was this, look, now that we have this idea, we should be putting as much focus and effort as possible into making sure we have the principles of tarbiyah according to the Ahlul Bayt. Some of it will be close to what Western psychologists and people in child developmental psychology talk about, but look, at the end of the day, we don't need them. To be honest, right? I'm not saying toss it out, but look, if we have the Ahlul Bayt who are coming and saying 0 to 7 is one phase, 7 to 14 is another phase, 14 to 21 is another phase, here's the principles, here are ulama who have written books on tarbiyah, then I don't need to go to Jean Piaget and look at their child developmental psychology. I don't need that stuff. When I have these principles given by the Ahlul Bayt, why would I need anybody else? You know what some people do, which I understand, is they want to grab those ideas and say, look at what they said. And we had this also 1400 years ago. Like, yeah, that's correct. So then don't mention them, then just go right to the Ahlul Bayt then, right? We have that mustaqim route. We have that straight, direct route. So let's just, inshallah, try to use that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So tarbiyah, I hope you get, very, very important. And now again, for the youth as well, who might be like, see, mom, dad, are you listening? Like, look, don't get arrogant about this too. The idea is we should have a bit more empathy and understanding for our parents for why they may not understand the best ways to communicate with us too. Right? That was something that took a while for me to understand, that why couldn't my parents teach me this stuff when I was younger? Because they were never equipped to do so. Right? They don't know our languages. It's very, very difficult. I don't know what you guys are talking about nowadays too. Right? Every generation, there's something different going on. Like, I don't understand what's happening. Right? Generations change. So we have to be a bit kinder and say, look, mom, dad, I know you don't get it. It's okay. But we need to at least respect and appreciate the fact that they're trying to make a connection somehow. We, again, us who are children, for our parents, say, look, mom, dad, I know you're trying your best. Let me help out a little bit. These are the kind of things we're talking about. This is what they're saying in school. Let me help out a little bit. You're extending an olive branch? Okay, I'll grab, right? I want to try to engage in this mutual communication. So trust me, because you won't realize it until it's too late, that the only true love and connection that you'll have from anybody else is your own parents. It's never going to come from anywhere else. And that brings us to the next factor, which pretty much destroyed Clark, which was what? After his parents, he's in school, right? He's in school. Who are his main influences? His friends. Again, are his friends Kryptonians? No. Are they superheroes? No. So what are they teaching him? It's peer pressure. This is how you live as an earthling, right? It's all subconsciously ingrained in him. So now when he figures out he's got powers, he's looking at everybody else. My friends can't run fast like this. They don't have super strength. They can't fly. They can't do all this. This is strange. This is weird. I'm abnormal. I'm the odd person out, and I don't want to be like that. So he dismisses and rejects his identity. So this next factor, which is a very, I think, it's a repeated topic, but from this perspective, hopefully it makes more sense, is our close circle of friends will determine our real identity. Who we hang out with, the people we share our secrets with, the people that we laugh with, that we watch movies with, that we play games with, that we listen to music with, halal music I'm hoping, right? Whatever it is, the ones that we sit around after the program, having chai and sitting and having this guftagu and conversation, all of those individuals will help determine the maximum potential that you and I are going to reach. Now, some of you might say, well, sometimes the group that I sit around with, they may not be on the same wavelength as me, right? Maybe you might think to yourself, I'm somebody, I'm trying to do better. I want to be more connected to Allah. I'm trying to be more connected and be, raised spiritually. And maybe my friends, they're more concerned with money or their job or sports and things like that. But it's okay. They're not bad people, right? They're still good at heart. Like, okay, that's fine. Would this same ideology fly anywhere else in life too? Like for those of you who are, let's say, in business, entrepreneur stuff, what's one of the main things they say? Like, look, if you want to be successful, you need to surround yourself with people who are much more successful than you, who are at the ideal role and the position and maqam that you want to get to. If you hang out with people whose businesses are all failing, then it's going to affect you too, because you'll never be able to grow. That group is not going to help you out at all. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that you're not on the same wavelength, that you don't have the same identity in mind. You don't have the same principles in mind. And that's okay. We're not here to judge anybody. We're just saying, look, you're going that way, that's fine. It's between you and Allah. Wallahu a'lam. I don't know your akhirah, and I won't judge you for that. You're not telling them that. You're saying this to yourself, obviously, right? Don't tell your friends that, I don't know, I have to go and I have a different identity than you. No, don't say that out loud. This is happening internally, right? That no, maybe sometimes we need to take a hard look at the group of friends we're around. Are these the people that, let's say, at namaz time, when they hear the adhan, and we're talking, we're playing games, we're eating, we're doing something, are they the type that'll be like, all right, let's go, let's get ready for salah, let's get ready for namaz? Or they're like, nah, no big deal, let's just keep playing and whatever. It means nothing to them. Now, is that haram? Could you technically keep eating and keep playing and keep watching? Yeah, you could. But there's no spiritual growth in there, right? And if you're somebody who wants to grow, then this group, this friend, they're not going to help you out, are they? And that's why we have multiple riwayat on this subject of real friendship. Let me just share, one from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. just out of consideration for time, I'll skip the Arabic, just go right to the English. Somebody asks the Prophet, what kind of person should I make my best friend? And the Prophet very simply answers, he who helps you remember Allah. Somebody who's going to make you and help you do dhikr of Allah. That's it. And also remind you about Allah whenever you forget about Him. Now, go back to the ayah of Quran. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah. Well, how am I going to be somebody that forgets? Well, sometimes it might happen. In a certain moment, I might forget about Allah. It's possible. If everybody else around me does not care, their focus and care and attention is gone, meaning it's somewhere else, they're not doing a ziyarah of Allah, so to speak, that's not their main focus in life, then we're all going to forget together then. And we're going to continue like that. And what happens? When you forget something constantly over and over and over again, it's gone. Right? فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Then you're going to forget who you really are. And whatever identity you have, alongside that group of friends, you're going to assume that. So if their idol, if the thing they worship is sports, you're going to start doing the same thing too. Because why? You don't want to be the odd person out where if they're discussing sports and statistics and then, games and seasons and all this other stuff, leagues, whatever, if you come out there and say, I was I was reading an interesting quote from Sayyid Mutahari, like, oh, you're weird, man. What's wrong? What are you talking about? That's so strange. Like, you're a nerd. That's what they're going to say. And that happens a lot, right? You're the odd person out. You want to think and talk about something different. You're on a different wavelength, but your friends are somewhere else. You're now wanting to remember, and they're saying, well, we don't care about that. And then sometimes now you are speaking, right? Look at the other way around. Let's say you switch. You start maybe inching towards saying, I inch towards saying some ghiba. Maybe I start talking about somebody. Or I start talking about some useless thing in the dunya. If my group of friends, they are muttaqi, they have iman, they're mu'mineen, they'll say, whatever, man, what's the point of that? Let's talk about something else. I was listening to a lecture from Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, and man, was it boring, right? And they start talking about something else, right? They change the trajectory of everything. And that happens. When you have a group, if we're going to use the word alpha, which I know is a little loaded nowadays, but if you have alpha mu'mineen in your group, they'll say, look, we don't need this bakwas in our conversation. You can talk about that somewhere else. Over here, I want to talk about this. Either you hang out with people who are alpha mu'mineen or mu'minat. I don't know if that applies for females, but sure, let's go with that. Andrew Tate might be upset that I'm using it like this, but it's okay, no problem. Or you yourself, I've got to become the alpha then. And start calling the shots for this group and say, look, man, why are we talking about this? Man, forget it, change. Either they are the ones who are helping you or you're the ones who are going to steer them. If they're not steerable, if you can't help them remember Allah, then it's going to tell you a little bit about your relationship with them. Are they really your friends or not? Are they really going to help you or not? And that's why, again, another hadith says, a good friend is better than tanha'i. A good friend is better than being in solitude and being alone. But solitude, being alone, is much better than hanging around and mingling with people who are ahl su, ahl guna, ahl ma'siyah, people who just don't know what they're doing in life, people who will sin, who are trying to take you away from Allah. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you may not find a group that works with you. They may not be on the same wavelength. What we have in many riwayat is that, sometimes that might mean you have to live a lonely life. I mean, look how sad it is for somebody like Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. I mean, where are we and where's Amir al-Mu'mineen? But again, the point that we all know, and it should break our hearts when we hear things like this, that, his companions go and they see him speaking to a well. It's like, Ya Imam, Ya Mawla, what are you doing? He says, I'm alone. What can I do? I have all of these asrar, all of this ma'rifah, all of these secrets, this ilm, I have all this stuff to share with you. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants anything. So I have to go and talk to this well because I'm all alone in this world. This is the way that Muslims have treated their ai''imah. They said, look, you have all this stuff available. And look, yes, physically, presently, we don't have the imam to go and ask these questions and things like that. But, again, we want to try to modernize or bring this to contemporary times. Self-reflect on this a little bit. If the imam, inshallah, may his dhuhur come quick, but if he comes back, what are you and I going to ask? Be honest. When he comes back, let's say he jumps on the minbar. Let's say he's like, Masumin, this is it. I'm going to come to their center first. Like, you guys are lucky. He jumps on the minbar. Okay, first thing, let's go Q&A. I was like, okay, Imam, why are dogs najis? Like, why is Maghrib 3 rakats? Why is music haram? Look, I'm not saying they're bad questions, and I'm not saying the Imam will be upset with that, but It's possible, I'm not trying to put words in the Imam's mouth here, but it's possible the Imam may respond and say, there was 1400 years of ilm that was passed down. What were you doing? There's articles and articles, books and books, websites that have thousands upon thousands of things out there. There's so much stuff available on YouTube, although there's some nonsense out there, but there's good stuff too. All these things are available. What were you doing? It's like, oh, well, I was watching an unboxing video, actually. That's what I was doing, right? MetaQuest 3 is coming out. I needed to see what the new... Sorry, I was watching it. So that's what I was doing with my time. Sorry. I was watching somebody else play Minecraft or Roblox or whatever. That's what I was doing with my time. Or I was watching somebody react to another video. I don't know what the Imam's going to respond to there, right? Can you imagine if somebody did that within the Shia world? Again, I just think about these things sometimes. Somebody watches somebody else's lecture and responds in a video. Like, yeah, look at this. I don't know. I don't know where we're going. I'm just saying that the way that I've seen are some individuals and some people kind of looking for fame and fortune out there, unfortunately, in our Shia diaspora, they're picking up on some weird things. When we have these very specific spiritual principles in Islam, where we're supposed to be unknown, we're supposed to be majhul, we're supposed to be hidden amongst people, we're supposed to work on ourselves secretly, right? This is the way that our spiritual struggle happens, right? Destroy the ego, destroy the nafs. And now you see people out there just blasting themselves everywhere, right? They're literally marketing themselves, right? As they say in Farsi, khud furushi, right? They're selling themselves out to everybody. And I know it has a very bad meaning, but that's the meaning. Some ulama, they have written books about the akhlaq of tabligh. Akhlaq of tabligh. They've written it for other speakers and muballighin. And this is one of the spiritual diseases that they say about muballighin, is that rather than work on content or delivery or all these other things, they work on marketing. Right? Yeah, they got marketing teams out there, social media presence. That's their main concern, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. But sometimes they focus more on that than anything else. Once everything's nice and sparkly and they know the algorithms and they play with that, many people, when I ask them too, who do you listen to? And they mention XYZ. Why? Oh, the person's funny. Or they're cool to hang out with. Or, yeah, they tweet like this, or they post like this. Or is the word still tweet like this? Is it X like this? I don't even know anymore. I have no idea what's going on, right? Everything's changing so much, right? Whatever it is. This has now become the criteria for some people about what is a real alim. And the Ahlul Bayt have said, look, we're giving you the criteria of who are the ulama, who represent us. We never said the ones who are throwing themselves out there, who don't have proper studies under their belt and these kind of things. What are they talking about? There are some speakers out there that in their whole speech, there's not one hadith mentioned, not one ayah of Quran mentioned at all. What they're talking about, where they're getting the information, I have no idea. No clue whatsoever. Look, even if they're going to use, let's say, fabricated a hadith or misquote the Quran, I actually would be happier with that. At least do something with it, right? But sometimes it's just story after story after story and this. Where is that coming from? Where is this stuff happening? But again, it's because sometimes, unfortunately, we get attracted by things like that. This sort of storytelling system. So we have to keep ourselves in check too. Am I actually going after that ilm, the ulum, the ma'rifah that's been passed down by the Ahlul Bayt? Is that what I'm going after? Am I going after these things? Am I going after the information that was passed down post-Karbala by the imams, the post-Karbala imams, to try to connect us back to Allah after they had lost their identity? Is that what I'm going after? Or I'm just trying to go for the subhanallah, na haydari stuff. What exactly am I going after here? This is something for us to self-reflect on. Again, I'm not saying it's all bad, but we still have to do some reflection there. Where is my growth? And are the people, even the speakers that I'm listening to, are they encouraging my spiritual growth as well? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So tonight we try to talk about this idea of, through this analogy of Superman or Clark or Kal-El, this idea of identity loss. Where are we really from? The way that Superman or Kal-El or Clark didn't know, sometimes we forget where we're really from. Even when we know, sometimes a lack of tarbiyah can make us forget our true values. Sometimes us as parents can instill the wrong values in our children because of our own materialistic dunyawi inclinations, because we don't know the system of the Ahlul Bayt, the tarbiyah system. That's one issue. Sometimes the friend circles that we have are taking us away from Allah. They're not reminding us about Allah and the Ahlul Bayt. That's going to take us away. Just like with Clark or Kal-El, his friend system, the people he was around, they also took him away as well too. But once, now to kind of tie everything together, once he finally went back to the source, for him, whether it's, again, different iterations, Fortress of Solitude, speaking with this computer-generated AI version of his father Jarrell, and finding out, where did I come from? What did you want from me, Father? Like, what am I sent down to this planet? What am I here to do? Why do I have these abilities? Now, you and I, we are minorities. We are outcasts in this society. Everything that you and I believe in, they're going to laugh at us, and they'll continue to laugh at us for that. You and I need to come to a point where we feel like Superman. We should feel like that. We should be flying above everybody else, not in an arrogant way, but say that we have the light of the Ahlul Bayt. We have been given this. Allah says, you, especially the Shia, you are the khulafa on this earth. You are the ones who are inheriting the teachings from the A'immah. You can become an imam just like the dua should be. Allah, make my children, make my dhurri, make my descendants imams on this earth too. Right? Lowercase I, obviously, right? That's what we want. That means we need to know those principles. We need to have this bird's eye view of insan, of the people around us, and say, look, you guys are so lost. I'm here to help, though. That means we need to have that iftikhar, the fakhr, the pride in what we believe in. Now, the question is this: how do we get that? Okay, we talked about this idea of losing identity. Right? Okay, well, how do we reclaim it? How do I get to this point where I do feel like a super mu'min, so to speak? Where I see that, no, this belief system is who I really am. I will practice these things even if I am the odd person out. Even if my actions in the month of Ramadan, nobody else fasts, I'll do it. Even if nobody else observes hijab properly, I'm going to do it. Even if nobody else cries during the Masa'ib of my age, I'm going to do it. Even if nobody else is going to come and recite a Noha, I'll do it. Even if nobody picks up garbage, I'm going to come and do it. How do I learn to become the odd one out and be proud of that person? How do I learn to become that extreme statistic? Right? This word extreme has a negative connotation nowadays, right? But you tell me, are the Ahlul Bayt, are they extreme types of human personalities, or are they the norm? They're, in a sense, they're extremists. They're radicals, aren't they? That's not a normal human being. So what we are trying to do, no, forgive me, FBI, CIA, if you're watching, is, in a sense, become that sort of extreme role model. We have to be above and beyond these superhumans. That's what we have to do. We have to embrace our teachings, our ideology properly, see that the rest of the world doesn't understand that, and be okay with that, and be proud of that, and never let anybody else affect us. How we do that, inshallah, we will start tomorrow night, if Allah gives us the tawfiq. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As we continue to remember the Masa'ib, the story of Karbala, of the Ahlul Bayt, as they slowly make their way back to Karbala on their long journey. Last night we brought our hearts and minds back to Karbala, and now we recall the difficulties that were faced in their first stop, which was Kufa. One individual, he reports that, he says, I was somebody who worked on plastering the walls inside the palace of Ibn Ziyad, la'natullah alayh. He said, I was working on plastering the walls one day when I heard this uproar outside. I heard all these strange noises coming from outside. He said, then my supervisor came in, my manager came in, and I asked him, what is going on outside? He said that, na'udhu billah, the enemies of our Amir, the enemies of Ibn Ziyad, the enemies of Yazid, they have been captured and they're being paraded around Kufa. And then the supervisor walks away. And this person who's narrating this says, I didn't react right away. He said, why? Because this person was a Shia that was in Taqiyya. But the minute his supervisor left, he begins crying profusely. He says, what have we done to the Ahlul Bayt? He says, I need to go find out what's happening outside. He makes his way outside and he sees women and children, and he looks at them and he recognizes these faces. He sees these heads on spears. He sees the light that's coming, the nur that's coming from these heads, and he's wondering, he's slapping himself thinking, what have we done to the haram of Rasulullah? What is happening over here? What have we Muslims allowed to happen in a place where we have invited him? And he's looking specifically at the children, and he's seeing that these children, why are their clothes ripped like this? The women, why is their hijab not there anymore? What's happening to them? and he's noticing and seeing that some of the people of Kufa, they're crying as well. They're coming outside with their tears. They're coming and offering food. They're offering hijab and cloths to the women and the children there. And he says that I see one woman over there. This is Kulthum bint Ali, telling them, Inna sadaqa haramun alayna. She's taking the food and the water and the hijab away from the children, saying, no, this is not allowed from us. Why? Because she's doing more tabligh to them. She says, did you forget who we are? Do you think that people like us can accept things like this from you? You are the ones who called us here. You did khidlan. You betrayed us. You wrote letters to us. You invited us. You told us you'd protect us. And now look what's happening now. We are made to parade through the streets like this and made to look, non-mahram men are looking at us in ways that we have never been seen in our lives before. And they say, according to some narrations, that one of the sons of Habib ibn Mudahir, was there in Kufa because his father had snuck out in the middle of the night. He did not know that his father had gone out to serve Imam Hussein and become shaheed there. He said that when the son of Habib had heard about all this commotion, he came outside as well, and he sees, and he's looking around everywhere, he sees the head of his father on a spear. He says, Baba, why is your head on a spear like this? He gathers some of his friends. He goes and he attacks the soldier that was holding the spear that had the head of his father. He collects the head of his father Habib. He sits down on the ground. He begins slapping himself and crying and speaking to the head of his father. He says, Baba, Abata. He says, this is not the way you should treat your son. He says, a father should never let his son see his father in a situation like this. This is breaking my heart. A father should never let this happen. We would say, Yabna Habib, O son of Habib, don't say things like this when the son of Hussein, when Imam Sajjad is just a few feet away from you. When he is there in chains, when his hands are chained and tied and chained to his neck, when these nails are there inside of his throat as he's walking in the desert heat and he's walking through Karbala from Kufa to Sham like in this situation, and he says the whole time I could not move my head and I was forced to look at the head of my Baba the whole time that I was going, and there was nothing I could do about it. Every time that I would shed tears looking at the head of my father, Shumar would come and he would slap me in the back with a whip. Somebody else would come and hit me on the head with a spear. Ajrukum ala Allah. Where this information was being there in Kufa, they say that this wasn't the only way that information was being transmitted. We now look at on the day of Ashura, some riwayat report that on Ashura, Salama has a dream very similar to the dream that Imam Hussein had when he was leaving Medina, when he did his al-wida to Rasulullah. Remember how back when Imam Hussein had left, he had gone to say al-wida and khudafis, his final salam to Rasulullah. He had gone down into sujood, he had fallen asleep in this state, and he had seen Rasulullah in his dreams, and Rasulullah had told them that, he said, Bunayya, oh my son, I see you rolling around in dirt, I see you rolling around in blood, my ummah is going to kill you. When you are thirsty, there'll be no pani for you, there'll be nothing for you. This is the way that I see you. And now we see what happens on Ashura. They say Salama now has a dream. She sees Rasulullah, he is covered in dirt, he is covered in blood, and she's saying, Ya Rasulullah, why are you like this? What's happened to you? Where are you? Where have you been? He says, don't you know, Salama, I was in Karbala with my son Hussein. I was there watching how they slaughtered my son Hussein on the plains of Karbala. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.